Enters Philippines. www.thehindu.com. The Marawi siege is enters Philippines yesterday 11:13 p.m. The city of Marawi in the south of the Philippines has been engulfed by a deadly, ongoing siege since late May when government forces began to take on heavily armed militants linked to the Islamic State. Local media estimate the death toll to be above 300. Over 2 lakh residents have fled what has effectively become an urban battlefield. While Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte quickly declared martial law across the island for 60 days, some say the blame rests with the political leadership for ignoring the rise of the IS and especially Mr. Duterte's decision last year to reject a ceasefire offer from the Motor Group. Now this group is on the front lines in the fight against the Philippine military in Marawi. Marawi is on Mindanao, the country's second largest island, rocked by armed insurgency for years. At the heart of the conflict is Mr. Duterte's mission to capture Okilis Nilan Hapalong, the leader of the Abu Sayyaf Islamist group who was named Emir of the Caliphate in Southeast Asia by his boss Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi in 2016. The situation in Marawi does not inspire confidence. Rebels still control key areas, they have set up checkpoints on bridges and their snipers have occupied local minarets. When the army fires mortars or RPGs, battle-hardened militants, reportedly including foreign fighters from Indonesia and Malaysia, are responding with similar armaments. Worse still, many civilians remain in the area, complicating the calculus of any planned government assault. While the siege of Marawi will draw Mr. Duterte's attention beyond the brutal drug war that his government has waged, its political significance has echoed throughout the region and beyond. His jihadist publications and videos have painted Singapore as a target, with 2 attacks against the city-state reportedly foiled. Similarly, Malaysia faced its first IS attack last June when a grenade injured 8 people at a nightclub near Kuala Lumpur. As the world's largest Muslim-majority country, Indonesia is concerned that its members could easily traverse the poorly policed waters between itself and the southern Philippines. While the US no longer has military bases in the Philippines, its military advisors and intelligence analysts have been deployed to aid the efforts of Mr. Duterte, notwithstanding his anti-American jives. President Donald Trump may have found common cause with Mr. Duterte in fighting Islamic extremism, yet the nature of the beast is quite different in the two countries. For Mr. Duterte, the priority is to bring the battle to a quick, decisive end, and if necessary, to resume negotiations with some groups that had earlier held out the promise of ending hostilities. Tackling the humanitarian crisis created by this conflict depends as much on these negotiations and on relief efforts as it does on ending the long neglect of Mindanao. Comments visit website. Bomb in Washington, Modi in US. www.thehindu.com. Bomb in Washington, Modi in US yesterday, 10:44 p.m. ahead of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's first meeting with President Donald Trump. Concern had grown about the future course of the bilateral relationship, particularly whether Mr. Trump would maintain his predecessor's commitment to its strengthening. These worries rested on Mr. Trump's rewriting the equation with Europe, reversing the American stand on China and in West Asia. They were also fueled by his harsh words on trade tariffs, immigrants and climate change, an issue on which he specifically targeted India. Mr. Modi and Mr. Trump have put many fears to rest, their meeting marked by personal bonhomie. This was reflected in Mr. Modi's attempt to engage Mr. Trump's family, perceived to be an important power center in the White House. He invited his daughter Ivanka Trump to an entrepreneurship summit in India. Her husband Jared Kushner was a part of the delegation-level talks. Importantly, the India-US joint statement has exceeded expectations, with an emphasis on the need for Pakistan to stop attacks on India launched from its soil and for China to forge its Belt and Road Initiative, taking into account India's concerns on territorial and sovereignty issues. Equally important has been the continuity in the India-US strategy partnership goals, albeit with a softening of the tone on China's actions in the South China Sea. Mentioning North Korea, West Asia and Afghanistan, the statement talks of a growing strategic convergence between the two countries and a shared vision on world affairs. That neither side brought up the phrase shared values or took questions from the media may be seen as a departure from past meetings, but it is not a divergence from the views and preferences of both leaders. It may even indicate further convergence between them. Also read no drifts in ties, Modi and Trump declare. However, while the two leaders were able to establish a common understanding of global issues, the joint statement indicates that many bilateral issues are yet to be resolved. The insertion of an entire section titled Increasing Free and Fair Trade is a veiled attempt at putting the Trump administration's concerns on bilateral trade on the front burner, for example, with references to balancing the trade deficit, protecting innovation, and increasing market access in areas where American industry has been most critical of Indian policy. While these bilateral issues were articulated, others were not brought up, including India's concerns on the immigration process and H-8B visa curbs, and Mr. Trump's withdrawal from the Paris Climate Accord, which will leave India's climate change financing handicapped. It is to be hoped that these will be raised in the near future. All things considered, a good beginning appears to have been made during Mr. Modi's maiden meeting with Mr. Trump. It is now for them to tackle the more substantive bilateral issues. Comments visit website. A shocking decision. A shocking decision. Move.cnh.com 27-June 2017. In a shocking move, the Karnataka Assembly has sent 2 journalists to jail and fined them, accusing them of publishing a series of defamatory articles against the Speaker and some MLAs, including a member of the House Privileges Committee, which recommended the punishment. The Speaker was the complainant as well as chairman of the committee ruling on the privilege motion and the authority ordering a House vote. The Editors Guild has quite rightly expressed strong disapproval of such gross misuse of power, as this clearly violates the fundamental right to freedom of speech guaranteed by the Constitution. It is distressing to note both ends of the political spectrum were involved, as a BJP MLA raised the issue along with a Congress member in the House last week, and the Speaker too had varied roles to play in this matter, wearing different hats. Every time a journalist is targeted for doing his, her job, it is freedom of the press that is assailed. The fourth estate is a pillar of civil society with a watchdog role and is often at odds with people in power due to the nature of disclosures and the object of criticism involving the duties of government officials, legislators or just any offender. The tenor of criticism and exposes may vary or even hurt, as in tabloid journalism. The legislature is, however, bound by tradition to hand over the process of trial and judgment to a third umpire, the judiciary. The chief minister, who also holds charge of information, can't wash his hands of this despicable decision, which signals to the world the persecution of journalists in Karnataka. Comments visit website. Emergency, have all learnt lessons from it. Emergency, have all learnt lessons from it. www.cnh.com 27-June-2017 The emergency declared by Prime Minister Indira Gandhi on the midnight of June 25, 1975 was a signal disservice to the basic idea of democracy, but it is far from certain if those who try to bring back its memories have taken appropriate lessons from it. For imposing the emergency, during which leading opposition figures were jailed, the media gagged, and sections of the ruling elite, the emergency czars, trampled on public concerns with a rare disregard, the Congress party paid a heavy price. Although Mrs. Gandhi was enough of a Democrat herself to lift the emergency after 19 months and call fresh elections to start on a fresh slate, the electorate taught her party a stinging lesson and installed the Janata Party, a combiner of several opposition parties of which the Jan Sangh, the BJP's precursor, was a part, in power. But the Janata Party's misrule, the rising graph of attacks on the poor and Dalits, and the constant bickering among the ruling party's constituents as the RSS-driven Jan Sangh began to flex its muscles and push itself to the front in the in-house battle for power, led to the collapse of the Janata government and Indira's rousing return to the centre stage in the election of 1980 that was forced on the country. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has not let emergency remain in a forgotten corner of history to which it had been consigned by successive generations. After assuming office 3 years ago, he has fished it out every June 26 in order to present the narrative that the Congress, the BJP's principal rival on an all-India basis, is the big bad wolf while the BJP government that he leads represents emancipation, liberty and the very culture of democracy. The goings-on in India for the past 3 years, the mocked promise of creating jobs, the shrinking economy, the disastrous economic consequences of demonetization that have now begun to take their social toll in the shape of farmers' suicides, the police firing on farmers and suppression of farmers' movements in BJP-ruled states, the rebellious mood of Dalit youth, the dispatch of the CBI to silence political adversaries, and the fear engendered in the media through selective targeting, paint a picture that is not consistent with any ideal of democracy. The opposition now speaks of an undeclared emergency in the country. Ironically, they didn't take the lead in pointing to the government's blemishes. It was a clutch of top BJP figures who held top positions in the Atal Bihari Vajpayee government who pointed to the authoritarian direction the government was taking and alerted us to the possibility of a new emergency. As citizens, we need to be mindful of the balance of possibilities. Comments visit website.